Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the latest episode of SchmoeTalks. That is right, we are back once again, 343, the third time this week. My name is Aaron Knoll. I am your host of this show. And over the last two nights, we have broken down the factions. We have our first video, which aired on Monday, broke down the dungeon, the usual suspects, and the den. Our second video broke down the quirky mercs, the Finstock exchange, and the stars. And today, our final video of three, SWAG and Korruption, the two big boys from last season, had their drafts as well, and we are here to break them down. And I say we because, like with the previous two videos, I am not alone. I have not one but two guests here, two members of the TMG crew to help me break this down. The first, he makes his second appearance on the show. He joined me for that second video alongside Ryan and Jesse, and he is back once again. He is our TMG commissioner on TMG Trivia, Mr. Kevin Poss. Kevin, how's it going, man?
It's going well, Aaron. Thank you for having me on again. Excited about this episode, talking about the two big dogs from last season, and just, the decisions that were made, and to see, what moves they made, if it's going to keep them up at the top or see them slide back and somebody else take those positions. So it'll be interesting to see.
Absolutely. I'll drop you back to the back for just 1 second and bring in our second guest. He is also making his first appearance on SchmoeTalks, and I believe outside of maybe some brief talkings on After Dark, this is the first time he's ever done anything actually full-on Schmoedown related. He is the resident Mandalorian from After Dark. Nicky Sullivan joins us. Nicky, how's it going?
Hey guys, happy to be here. It's just nice to be here, and I'm looking forward to Schmoedown stuff. Like, we did a few Schmoedown interviews back a while ago. We talked to some of those guys. A lot of them on these factions, actually. So that's what's fun about these factions. I like how these two are shaping up, and a lot of people I know on there.
Yeah, absolutely. That is right. A number of the people over both of these two factions we have talked to and met as we bring Kevin back in here. And yeah, so let's not waste any time. Let's go ahead and get into them. Our first faction we will be discussing, they bring the drip, they bring the swag. Winston Marshall's swag, his 12 members right there. And as we did with the other videos, I'm breaking them up into players that were retained, experienced players brought in, and rookies. Winston retained 5 players from last season's roster: Chandru Dandapani, Paul Oyama, Lon Harris, Andres Cabrera, and Frank Moran. He brought in 6 experienced players from other factions: Eric Zipper, Laura Kelly, Vinny Mancuso, Haley Fouch, Jen Kemp, and Jonathan Harris, who returns after a year-plus break from the Schmoedown. And Winston, going against the grain of most managers, drafts only one real rookie in Bradley Tingle, being one of the later draft picks. So, Nicky, I'll go ahead and start with you. Based off what you know about these people from the Schmoedown, what are your thoughts on that draft?
Well, I'm just laughing because that picture of Bradley was pretty funny.
Yeah, it is a great picture.
It is.
I thought, like, who is that guy? I don't know him.
We discussed with the Mount Schmoedown crew how they got access to some of these pictures, and I said, I bet you some of them they just hit them up in the DMs and we're like, hey, give us a picture. That's got to be one of them, right?
That's gotta be.
But yeah, like the ones they retained are really good. Chandru and Zipper, and then I think that's another thing. I was reading Frank Moran earlier, and my head just said Frank Moron, because I'm an idiot. He's not a moron, I am. But yeah, I like the way this team's shaping up. I think I'd keep an eye out for Zipper and Chandru, for sure. Haley Fouch, I mean that's one too. That's a strong pick. So it looks like a strong team. Winston, his managerial style sometimes concerns me because it's usually a little more flash, and he'll miss some actual times. Like, there's not a lot of times during the Schmoedown where you can manage, where like the manager can make a difference. I feel like he's missed some of those times a couple times over the season. So I hope that gets better because these players are great. This is a worthy team, worthy faction.
True. Kevin, what are your initial thoughts on SWAG?
Yeah, just bouncing off what Nicky said, keeping Oyama and Lon, I think, was a smart move. Chandru, you got to keep him. Excellent job retaining the belt. Zipper was an excellent pickup. I think he's improved dramatically. And, you know, his time that he spent in the dungeon, you know, he had a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. So I think this is a good fit for him. He can study under Chandru and some others. Laura Kelly and Ace Cabrera are awesome in Star Wars. Vinny has shown that he can be good in singles along with Haley and Jen. They do need some help there. So, I mean, I think that with the team that they have, as long as they're kind of like what Nicky was saying, as long as the leadership is there and, you know, maybe the senior members of SWAG like Paul and Lon can pull together, they can bring some of these, even though they're not rookies, like Jen was a fan leaguer that hasn't had many matches. Benny hasn't had many matches. Haley hasn't been in too many matches, I don't think. I'm glad he's on back with his brother. I think that's cool, but I'm interested in seeing the Bradley Tingle guy. I don't know much about him, and then Frank Moran he seems like he has potential too. So I think there's potential all up and down this lineup. It's just a matter of extracting it. So it'll come down to whether or not Winston can pull that out of people. And from what I've seen from last season, I think he definitely can.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like this, and I like that SWAG and Korruption are the two that are together, because when I put the lineup together and I broke it down the way that I did, I realized that these two teams really reflect each other very much in how they've designed it, where a lot of the other teams who struggled last year really placed their bets on rookies and hoping, especially with like Finstock and Levine, when we were talking in those episodes, both of them have 8 out of 12 members of their team that are rookies. Which is very interesting, whereas Winston only has one legit rookie. Now, I don't know a thing about Bradley Tingle, except that picture and the name Bradley Tingle. Sure,
is that his name?
That is his name.
Right? That's his real name. Okay, no, I'm not shaming. I'm not. There's no Tingle shame.
No tingle shame.
Get the tingle on, like John Favreau said. You got the tingle. There you go.
And so. With that, like, I don't know anything about him. I don't even know what division he could play in, but like out of 12 people, the rest of the faction is so solid and everything about it makes sense as to where people could kind of fall, that I really do like it. I like that he kept as many of his people that he could. Obviously the main 3 were retainees. He then got Andres back, and then at the end he picked up Frank Moran and got him back as
It doesn't actually say anything for Tingle. Wait, I'm looking all over the place, and it says NA. So
okay, so even they didn't know when they put that together where he's going to play.
They don't even know what he's doing.
You go.
He could be the lighting guy for all we know.
He could be anything at this point. So, but I really like this squad, and you're right. There are a number of fixer-uppers on this squad. I'll call them that. Players who have shown proficiency in certain areas that can be improved. Whether it be Ace in Inner Geekdom, and probably a little bit in Star Wars too, because that title match probably got his confidence a little bit. But Mancuso, Fouch, Kemp, Jonathan Harris, players who have all showed great gameplay and great proficiency, but they're not consistent. And I think these are a good set of players to go with Winston, because statistically last year, Winston had players improving all around the board. Paul played better. Lon played better. Liz played better. Chandru is not playing much better, but it was an improvement, certainly. He didn't lose under Winston. Ace obviously stepped up in Star Wars. The number 10 pick being a major points getter is not something anyone saw coming from SWAG. And if you look at that, like, it's interesting because technically speaking, Adam Collins was also a 10 pick since he was picked up in free agency, and he was the only one. So I think it's interesting to show that and that's another thing. These two managers in particular have really been paying attention to the depthness of their squad, and you can see that in the fact that they brought in a lot of vets. They weren't taking a lot of bets on rookies. They took bets on players who have experience that they feel they can help shape up, which I really do like. And so I think all of these players that I listed have that. Frank Moran as well. I think I forgot to say him because he has one teams match years ago and then a singles match under his belt. Played well in both of them, but there were losses. And so that shows that there is room for potential improvement there. As you said, Winston often goes for the theatrics on screen. I think he had some of the best moments in terms of theatrics, the literally handing Roxy an L, the roasting and going back and forth with Shannon and all that. Like, he brings the theatrics on screen.
The Winston Duke thing was good too.
Yeah. I think he does a lot off screen though, and I think that showed in his players' performances in such a way that he doesn't always have to do it in the middle. So like with the other videos, this is SchmoeTalks. This is a question interview style thing. So I did bring some questions related to the faction to kind of analyze certain things. So I first want to look at the situation that kind of the Twitter sphere hyped up a little bit more. This Andres Cabrera thing. Basically, Winston took a gamble and went for Laura Kelly and hoped that Ace would hang on till it came back around to him on the next round, because he did it when at a long break. So he had to go through the whole cycle to get back, and he got Ace, right? And there was that thing of a lot of people making a thing about, oh, how's Ace going to feel? Does Ace feel gypped that he went for somebody else ahead of him, a player that Ace beat in the tournament?
They don't know
again, whether or not they use that for a story thing, if that's like a story thing, I don't, whatever. But in terms of like on a personal pride note, right? Because we talked about with the guys with the Den, how I believe it was Brandon, if I remember correctly, from Mount Schmoedown, brought up that Rachel Silvestrini may have a bit of a thing with Kate because she was left till 12th pick, you know, and she was someone who was technically retained and brought back, but she was left till the very end to get picked up. Obviously, this is a little bit different with Ace, but do you guys think there is any potential holdover on Ace being picked second ahead of somebody else?
If it is, it would be in story only. Like it would be like a manufactured story, which they do sometimes. But Ace doesn't have an ego, as far as I've seen. But I don't. He's so chill. He just walks around with his giant water bottle. I don't think he's gonna get mad at anyone.
Yeah, he might literally be the nicest guy that we have. I mean, behind the scenes guy. As far as having him on, you know, as a co-host and stuff, and he's just a very nice guy. But like Nicky said, you know, it may be a storyline thing that they want to push through the season. I've already seen the meme where it's the guy, you know, checking out Laura, you know, with Winston's face, checking out Laura, with holding the hand of Ace. You know, they're just trying to get that stirred up, but you know, that may have been the plan all along. We don't know. With Chandra being the main IG guy, you know, I think it's smart to have Laura, you know, go ahead and take her. And I mean, she is an excellent top tier Star Wars player. So I think that's what you have to do in this situation.
It's a different question, but I wouldn't have done it myself. Nothing against Laura's knowledge. She's very knowledgeable. I would have held on to Ace just because I think Ace knows those weird questions that are beta canon, I guess I would call it, where it's in the visual dictionary, but even the visual dictionary, like those types of questions that are mentioned somewhere not in the movie. He's gotten a lot of those questions really well, where even things that I wouldn't have known.
Right. Sure. No, you're right, and that is certainly a strength. So a different question that I thought of kind of to propose to you guys, since you only have two factions and one less panel member, we have a little more time to dissect some of the questions. And so here's another one. Obviously, you know, the assumed A team is to keep final exam together. They had a record in 1 year of 5-2. They went through a mini non-official tournament, like a one-stream thing, and then they went through an actual tournament. Both of their losses came in technical number one contenderships. But there has been talk, because they did pick up Jonathan Harris, and they made a point of doing it by having Lon dress up in the professor gimmick and have him show up on screen to do it, that many people think maybe they will break up Final Exam and actually put the Harris brothers back together. Their record when they ended, I believe, was 3-2, because they played that tournament, lost. They lost one more match after, and then Evil Geniuses was put back together. So they never played again after that. So they also did end on a positive record. What do you guys think would be the smarter move? Keep Final Exam together after a year of pretty much successful play, or to put the brothers back together and maybe pair Paul with somebody else? Because we do have another former team in the loose cannons of Paul Oyama and Eric Zipper, who ended, I believe, on a 2-1 record.
See, I think you keep Final Exam together, maybe try out Paul and Eric, and then if you want to play with it later, there's always that option. But Final Exam, they were the most, I think, besides Shazam, consistent team throughout the year last year. As far as like they're on screen, they never had any kind of hold ups as far as I think it's this, or blurting out answers, or having to ask for JTs or anything like that. I think maybe Lon forgot to write an answer down or something one time, but they were very, very consistent though. So I in my opinion, I would keep them together. Maybe explore down the road. Maybe try Jonathan with Zipper or something like that is what I meant to say. And then if you need to later on, you can try formations. But yeah, I would stick with Final Exam.
Then Nicky, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, there's benefits to keeping Final Exam together. It's just I don't think Lon would do better from that. I think kind of Lon would end up having the same luck either way. Like I don't think that's going to have much of an effect on him. I kind of want to shake it up. Like that's just what I want to see. But it might not be the best like business move, best managing move, but I'd just really like to see them shake it up. And I'm almost thinking like, could we see another thing like a few years ago with like the Anarchy, where some of these teams like the Odd Couple wasn't a team like before that, and then you get a team like that comes in and
as cool as that would be, in general, I don't think they'll do that, only because by trying to drift more towards the sports element of things and keeping the wrestling side mostly to stories, Christian is actively trying to give the managers more control. And so I think forcing players into a mandatory shakeup where they may not have control over who goes where does go against that. So before we move, I was going to say,
Paul could do better with someone else. That's just kind of what I because I think that him and Lon have a lot of the same overlap, and I feel like Paul could benefit from somebody who knows some of the things that he doesn't know as much.
Sure, that could be fair.
Your categories are all those thought-provoking ones.
One more question before we move on to corruption, just to kind of throw it out there. There was a lot of discussion, especially in the first video, because with the Den having a potential of 4 teams. Every faction ideally wants to have 2 teams if we can get teams back up and running this year. We know who the A team is. SWAG did have a B team previously in Rogue 2, but neither of them are on the squad anymore. Out of the players that are left in Zipper, Mancuso, Moran, Fouch, Kemp, Jonathan Harris, if Final Exam are staying together, just kind of quickly before we move on, who do you think would be the best 2 to try and put together to make that B team?
I could see maybe like a Vinny and Haley matchup. Or
true, and I believe they would have worked together at Collider because Vinny does work for Collider.
Yeah,
I thought Haley and Ace.
There you
would
go.
Ace do well in regular trivia?
That would be the question.
Because Ace has played 1 teams match, and it's memorably abysmal. It was years ago, but
I don't know. Also, Jen, I think, could benefit from a team partner. A good solid team partner, maybe like a Zipper or even a Haley Fouch, because she teamed with Perry, and they were a very good team. So that might be what she needs to.
I forget their record offhand, but what about Zipper and Fouch? Because they were a team.
Zipper and Fouch would be good too.
That's right. They were a team. Yeah, that's right.
I don't know what their record was, but I know they were a team. So, which would be the ultimate fuckery of storylines, because they broke them up and had them play each other in a hate match, and they broke Winston and Zipper up to hate each other, and now they're all back together. Swag's like an orgy of exes, just a bunch of people who used to play with each other, all coming together under Winston. Swag, drip, drip, I guess. We'll go ahead and move on to Korruption. And not a lot of new faces. Very interesting. Korruption, out of their 12 players, they hold on to 8 of 10 players from last year. Mike Kalinowski, Chance Ellison, Adam Collins, Marisol McKee, Mark Edward Hoyk, Clee Wiggins, Claudia Dolph, and Elliot Dewberry. They bring in 3 previous players in Joseph Scrimshaw, Sean Sullivan, and James White. And they also bring in 1 rookie, someone who I am formerly very familiar with, and like Mr. Jacob Blunden joins in. So what do you guys think? We'll go ahead. I'll start with Kevin on this. What are you thinking?
Man, as far as, I was kind of worried about Korruption, trading away the two early picks to the Den for Marisol, just to keep that, the Adam and Marisol team together. But wow, taking Hoyk and then Scrimshaw, she played this perfectly. She even came up with Sully and then Jacob Blunden. I think he is going to really surprise some people.
I have to throw out there. Sorry to interrupt. So everyone was, and the other videos we talked about the Fan League 4, who I have said openly the only one I'm familiar with was Amaru, because I know him. He's played in our league. I know nothing about the others, but I know they're hyped up for their Fan League experience. If you want to talk about Fan League, go, not to promote another channel, but go to Take 3, search back through their archives, Take 3 Productions, search back through their archives and find the old Fan League matches. They are still up there. They're called the Fan Movie Trivia SchmoeTalks. On a separate note, if you want to see me win at a match, I'm about 5 years younger and winning, so you can watch that. And Jacob played in that league when it was, just one league before all, everything expanded, and he's damn good. It's just he's been away for so long. But he's never stopped watching the SchmoeTown. I mentioned it when she came up, but Jacob's actually, for I believe now for a while, longtime girlfriend is actually Taylor Robinson, who has competed in the SchmoeTown and is back this year for the exchange. So he's certainly ingrained in it. It's not something he's ever stepped away from. Sorry about that. Go ahead, Ed. Continue. I didn't mean to cut you off that bad.
No, that's absolutely okay. I've even seen him kind of floating back around in the fan leagues this year, as far as he was going to try to get back into it if he didn't make the SchmoeTown. So here he is. He's in. So I see him being surprising a lot of people. I like Clee Wiggins. I've always thought she had a lot of potential. James White, another fan leaguer. I think he has a lot of potential too. Claudia Dolph, she's kind of in the same level as Clee Wiggins in my mind, just that mid card level, I guess you would say.
They all fell into the trap of
everybody loves Dewberry.
True. Nicky, what are your initial thoughts?
I'm glad Sullivan's not with the Den anymore. That's probably the best thing. No relation, but I just hated seeing him with the Den. I really like Kate. It's just the character. I can't do it. It's like if I was on that team, like that would be like, okay, Grace, great manager, Kate, what are you doing? Everything like that's happening is it's noise.
Your reaction is what we saw out of Paul Preston when he was stuck between a rock and a hard place called Chicago. Kate and Tom, just like what the fuck is happening?
Paul's a good guy. He knows his shit. But just going back to like the retaining players, Kalinowski, Collins, those two obviously I think are the powerhouses on that team. But yeah, keep an eye out for Sullivan, and who knows, like Scrimshaw. I think Scrimshaw could take it a long way in Star Wars. And he's doing Inner Geekdom too as well, right?
But I don't know, but I was going to ask you guys on the heels of that, right?
I hope so.
To throw in the question here, Korruption had pretty much everything on lock from the get-go. They had an A team in Korruption. They have Mike and Chance in IG, and Adam has said he'd be interested in going over if it's a chance that he's allowed to do. And obviously, all three of them have singles on lock, and now they have two teams to get teams on lock. They brought in a lot of workable singles players so they can get to a certain level. That including Mark, Edward, Jacob, James, and everyone else. But Star Wars was the one thing that was worrisome, especially when Laura Kelly went away. So here's the question of almost not a direct trade type deal, but in terms of by getting rid of your trades to bring in Marisol, you sacrificed any chance you had at getting Laura Kelly. Because we've seen in this draft, the way that it went, if she hadn't gotten rid of that first round pick, she could have got Laura Kelly. Kelly went into the second round of this draft. Mm-hmm. So she could have had her if she wanted her. Yeah. And so the question is, really, it's a twofer. Was getting first off, was getting Marisol McKee worth letting go of Laura Kelly? And since you don't have Laura Kelly, do Joseph Scrimshaw and Sean Sullivan make up for that?
Yeah.
I'll start with Kevin first, just because. Go ahead.
Man, that's tough, but I'll say yes, only because I think I see Marisol succeeding as a singles and teams player. So I see her getting the faction more points that way. But Scrimshaw, he's dangerous in Star Wars. It's just going to be kind of like what we were talking about. Is he going to play IG? I don't know. I know. Yeah, they have Chance already. He's talking about going back to singles as well. So everything's kind of up in the air, I think, with that. But I'm sure they have a plan. But I think it was worth it though for her. I think Scrimshaw is a suitable replacement for Laura to retain Marisol.
So just because I wanted to get your opinion in there before we go on to Nicky, we're going to wrap up the show shortly, but unfortunately one of us does have to step away a little early, and that would be Mr. Kevin Poss. So Kevin, if you just want to go ahead and plug yourself quickly before you get out of here.
Oh, yeah. I appreciate you having me on. Sorry, I got to get out of here. But if you want to check out TM Geek and anything on TMG Trivia, we would love to have you. Anybody who did not make the SchmoeTalks or the first class league, and you would like to try your hand at any of our trivia leagues, we'd love to have you. We have singles, teams, geek league, and then we also have we do like random trivia nights, and we also do Ryan Payne, who has also been on this panel, runs I forget what it's called now.
Franchise Wars.
Thank you, Franchise Wars, which is we did like a Star Wars tournament, and we're doing a Marvel tournament. So come check us out. It's cool stuff. So definitely a fun time. But this has been great. I enjoy breaking this kind of stuff down, and thank you for putting it on here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for coming. We will see you next opportunity we get.
All right. Sounds great. Thanks, guys.
All right. So, Nicky, I'll continue on before we wrap up. I will pose the same question to you. Was it worth giving up Laura to get Marisol? And then following that up, do Sean Sullivan and Joseph Scrimshaw fill the hole?
Absolutely. I think I don't even think it's one or the other too. Like I think like those two could potentially like face each other down the road, like in the Star Wars division, just by being the best. Because either of those two could challenge like Damon and like the best in that division. I don't think it's a trade off.
Has played. He's played before, so.
Yeah, and like Lady Justice, I mean, she's been like a force out of all like the players last year that I wasn't really familiar with when the season started. But like she was one of them that just stood out. Like, hey, that very impressive knowledge there. So
yeah,
I don't trade off at all. I think Laura Kelly's good where she is. I think that kind of worked out for everyone. And everything there.
Yeah.
Because even Ace, I think Ace was one of those things that could have been one of those things. The more I think about it, maybe that was one of those things like where for the good of the team, they did like talk to Ace beforehand and say, hey, we're going to take Laura because they're not going to get her.
True. That could have been. Yeah, I think the trade for Marisol was worth it.
Oh yeah.
Simply because she has potential to be a good singles player. And Adam has said straight up that, you know, he has interest in continuing in teams, but for the moment he doesn't have any interest in playing with anyone other than Marisol. And considering 80% of his faction, or whatever the exact number is, are players that were brought back from last year, that would set to stand that most of them don't interest him more than Marisol. And out of the new singles prospects, which would be Jacob and James, I don't know if either of them have a repertoire that would interest him. It seems like him and Marisol developed a good connection to want to play with each other that way. And so I think it was a great idea to go for her. Sullivan and Scrimshaw obviously have the ability to do well. And I think Scrimshaw's record of 1-4 is woefully unfair because every Star Wars match is difficult. Do they necessarily fill the hole of Laura Kelly? I'm going to say not yet, or barely, only because there are two of them. But I need to see more wins out of them is the problem.
I go back to the beta canon thing. Like he gets a lot of the beta canon questions wrong. And I hate that those questions, like I'm one of those people that this is more a format thing. I really think they need to change some of the format as far as what qualifies as a trivia question in the Star Wars division. Because now that most of Star Wars is going to be on TV, they really, I think, especially The Mandalorian and certain Clone Wars episodes. Like I wouldn't get too deep cut with Clone Wars stuff. Like I wouldn't say like what's the name of the Jedi that went to the Ilum with Ahsoka during that episode. I wouldn't go that far, but I really think they need to be bringing
Yoda?
in more. No, it wasn't Yoda.
Yoda?
But he was there for a second, and then he was. It's like, hey, here's Ahsoka. Here's David Tennant was on the arc, but there was a. I think that would be a good question, but I think that you can't really go to those beta canon questions when you have alpha canon that's out there that's just ripe for the picking, even though that it's not movies, because when it comes, whether you're doing one of those, I know it's called the movie trivia SchmoeTalks, but whether you're doing one of those like visual guide questions, or if you're doing one of those television questions, either way, that's not a movie trivia question. So for Star Wars, it should probably just be the Star Wars SchmoeTalks. And then if it was, I think Scrimshaw would be much more competitive because Alex is reading everything and he's being paid well to do it. Like that he does everything. And good on him. I wish I could do that, but we were talking about this High Republic stuff last night. Oof. But the knowledge that he has goes beyond the alpha canon. He has the beta canon, he has the legends canon, and I guess that alpha beta canon thing, that's more of a Star Trek thing, but Star Wars does have it. They say that everything is canon now, but it's not, because they say the visual guides are canon, and the visual guides say that Boba Fett's armor is a Durasteel alloy, and we know for a fact now that it's Beskar.
Right.
So I just think that they're unreliable sources for trivia questions. So maybe if there's a rule amendment down the line, Scrimshaw would excel. But are they like? I'm wondering when they would implement any rule changes like that.
Well, they on that level, I don't know. They have openly talked about the fact that there is a straight up rule book coming that's been through the hands of multiple competitors, multiple outside sources, quite literally lawyers, to officialize it as a sports league. So I don't know how deep or what direction they go in terms of a rule book. Maybe they establish different rules and parameters for leagues. I do know that they're addressing certain things in leagues. As I said on another episode, I'm not going to say anything that could get me in trouble, but I can say that I know they are planning on expanding the category list for Inner Geekdom. I won't say anything past that, but it will make Inner Geekdom more interesting, I think.
I think so. But is that like the James Bond argument? Like, should James Bond be in Inner Geekdom? Should Mission Impossible be in Inner Geekdom? Because I'm one of those people that thinks
I'm not answering anything because I do know the answers.
Oh, it's insider information. Okay. I thought you were talking about getting in trouble, like you didn't want to offend anybody.
No. It's not James Bond, but I can't answer anything. But anyways, so with that being said, unless you had anything more to add about corruption, I think we pretty much got it. Because again,
like as far as managerial league goes, like just comparing to SWAG before, Shannon manages the hell out of that team.
She does, and I think really this season is truly going to be the other 7 playing corruption, because Shannon's got all of her. That was one of the more impressive things. Shannon had a roster of 10 last year, and 7 of them got her points. 6 of those players are back. And 2 of those players came close to getting her points, in Claudia and Clee. So if she can shape them up a little bit and give them another chance, because like Clee's, they openly talked about the day of the recording, like the match recording, Clee was like, oh, we need a last minute replacement. Hey, you're here in person and want to play?
Yeah.
And so like with a match with actual prep, she could do better. We don't know. So we'll get that chance to see.
And one of the things that like Kalinowski, like it's the benefit of living with your manager, is that like they didn't get affected, at least Kalinowski didn't get affected by the COVID thing as far as like coaching, managing goes, because that sort of stuff, I'm pretty sure they did all of that in person before. And now with the rest of the players, you kind of have to do it over StreamYards, over Zoom. And that just seems like all the more harder, especially when it comes to teams and when it comes to
possibly.
Yeah. I hope we get back to in-studio matches. I need that.
So with that being said, guys, I think that is the episode. Obviously, it was always bound to be a bit shorter. We had one less panel member and one less faction to talk about.
And I'm not stupider than the other panelists.
No, not at all. I think you bring a very interesting and different thing. That's why I like the fact that we were able to get a varying number of panelists over these 3 episodes. But for those of you who might be interested in a little bit more content, be on the lookout because we have one more surprise video. While in the process of recording these, I was lucky enough to secure an interview with one of the managers of these said factions. So a 4th video in what will never happen again, because this recording schedule has been hell for me. We will be doing an interview with John Kaiser, manager of the Dungeon. Get a chance to go in depth and talk about as much as he's willing to talk about with that faction, how things came together. It's something I'm really looking forward to. So guys, thank you so much for checking out. I know there's a lot going up this week, but I think breaking it up really helped. Getting all the different opinions in really helped. I want to thank everybody who's been involved this week. The guys from Mount Schmoedown, Jesse Swift of the Quirky Mercs. I want to thank Kevin Poss. I want to thank Nicky for helping me out here today. And I hope you guys will return again tomorrow. Kaiser from the Dungeon will be joining us for an interview. For everyone here, my name is Aaron Knoll. This has been SchmoeTalks. Thank you guys for watching. We will see you all